Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The movie starts in Africa, specifically to one of the beautiful cities surrounded by the sea. Despite its inhabitants being all Africans, Lucius, who grew up and lived among them, is seen happy, humble, and enjoying love with his wife, Aricia. Unfortunately, this happiness does not last. Suddenly, the army summons them, and it becomes clear that there is an attack on the city. At this moment, everyone transforms into soldiers and starts defending the city. However, the enemy this time is not a small force. It is a massive army sent by the Roman Empire to occupy the island. We notice that the enemy commander gives instructions to his soldiers, and his word is respected. He turns out to be a prominent leader, one of their strongest warriors, leading the campaign to defeat and dethrone the island's revered king, Jugurtha. At this point, the Roman army is about to engage. The soldiers are strong, large in number, and equipped with the most powerful weapons and armor. Arcia realizes this time is different. She rushes to Lucius and embraces him as if it were a farewell. The enemy forces approach, and the two sides clash. Initially, they attack with catapults, which have little effect due to the granite walls and strong Roman formations. Gradually, they engage with arrows, and casualties begin to mount as the epic battle unfolds. Lucius, from atop the wall, directs his soldiers and performs valiantly. However, the Romans continue advancing. Unfortunately, the fleet reaches the shore, breaches the wall, and storms the city under the command of Cassius, who leads the front lines with bravery and strength. Despite Lucius and his companions' deadly resistance, they are surrounded, and the end seems near. From atop the wall, Aricia tries to support them, but Cassius notices her and orders his soldiers to kill her. They shoot arrows, and Aricia falls into the sea. This shocking moment leaves Lucius detached from reality, making him an easy target. He is injured and falls into the sea as well. As soon as he enters the water, he transitions into a mystical realm, finding himself alone on the shore of a dark sea. In the distance, he sees Aricia waiting in a boat that moves eerily. Lucius tries to run to her, but an invisible force holds him back. Aricia tells him she will wait for him and bids him farewell. She then boards the boat with a ghostly figure, heading toward the afterlife. Suddenly, Lucius regains consciousness, emerging to the surface. Shocked, exhausted, and injured, he begins searching among the bodies for Aricia. Finally, he finds her, and in a heart-wrenching scene, he hugs her and cries, "I swear to you, my friend, I was deeply moved and saddened." Unfortunately, he does not get the chance to honor her properly as the Romans capture him. They gather all the bodies and burn them to prevent disease, doing so in front of the devastated widows who wail and mourn. During this, Cassius declares that from this day, the city belongs to Rome, subject to taxes and annual tributes. He departs, pained by the sight of the grieving widows, muttering, "Those who died have found peace, but those like Lucius who remain alive are branded with the mark of slavery." They are then loaded onto a ship bound for Rome. Days into the journey, while everyone is asleep, of power being in the hands of the Senate and the people was never realized. Gaeta and Caracalla welcome Cassius. Crowning him with the laurel of victory, they ask him to prepare for the games to be held in his honor. However, Cassius is uninterested in celebrations and gladiatorial games, which he sees as wasteful of state funds that the people need more. Cassius, weary of wars and conquests, requests to retire, saying he has served Rome for years and now wishes to spend the rest of his life with his family. Gaeta, angered, denies his request, telling him to rest for a few days and then prepare for a new campaign in India. Cassius, seeing them as failures who will ruin the empire, reluctantly obeys to avoid putting himself in danger, knowing they are madmen. Meanwhile, Lucius and the other captives are sold to a slave trader. They are paraded through the city streets, met with hatred from the people. Despite their suffering and displacement, they are subjected to slavery. The caravan eventually reaches a buyer, Macrinus, known as the Master of the Gladiators. He is wealthy and owns an arena where he buys strong slaves to fight. He plans to test the new group, but not just any test. Mistakes mean death, my friend. The soldiers lead the group into the arena, leaving them in the center. Lucius asks Jugurtha to stay close to him. He wants to protect him because he is injured. And in a moment, the gates open, and the monkeys attack recklessly. And the disaster is that they aim for the monkeys with arrows containing stimulants. They give them energy, making them like zombies. One of them jumps on Jugurtha and starts biting his neck. Lucius feels trapped by the others. The same monkey then attacks Lucius. He grabs the monkey, seeking revenge, biting off a small piece of muscle. At that moment, the fierce monkey becomes scared and retreats, but it attacks again. Lucius strangles it with a chain, sacrificing himself. Let me tell you, the audience is stunned by Lucius's strength. This catches the attention of Macroinus, who decides to buy him at any cost. On the other side, Commander Akakios finally reaches his home. He sees his wife, and we discover that he is married. Lucilla, the daughter of King Marcus Aurelius, the heroine of the first part and the lover of Maximus. Lucius, who was suffering. He arrives with a new group to the gladiators' quarters. There we meet Fico, the right-hand man of Macroinus. Fico lines them up like students to assert his control. He is arrogant and sees himself as the best and strongest. He inspects them to isolate the injured. After a while, they are gathered in front of Macroinus, who is focused on Lucius, trying to communicate with him. But Lucius ignores him, so Macroinus tries to learn his local language to speak to him. Despite this, Lucius remains silent, provoking Macroinus. The disaster is that he faces Fico, who is literally a human tank with devastating strikes. Fico provokes Lucius, who doesn't want to kill him, but there's no choice, and they clash. Despite the clear mass difference between the opponents, Lucius is smarter and faster, dodging Fico's blows. He even counters him and is about to finish him. But Macroinus sees what he wants and ends the fight. Later, Macroinus summons Lucius to his quarters, welcomes him, treats him specially, and Lucius aligns himself with Macroinus, agreeing that Lucius will fight in the Colosseum under Macroinus's name. In return, Macroinus will help Lucius achieve his revenge and kill Commander Akakios. Akakios, we shift our focus to him as he talks to Lucilla, saying, "The Caesars want us to launch a campaign on India. If I launch another campaign, it will be on Gaul and Caledonia. After that, the Senate will rule in the name of the people, and we will restore the lost dream of Rome." His words bring back painful memories for Lucilla, as her father and lover died for that dream. She tells him he would rule them as a dictator. Lucilla begins to inquire about his plans, and we learn that the Second Army, consisting of 5,000 soldiers, is loyal to Commander Akakios. He plans to use them to impose his control over the capital and rid it of the tyrant. But Lucilla advises him to wait and meet with the Senate first to gain their support. We return to Lucius after his agreement with Macroinus, who takes him to the capital to attend the celebration held for the victory. However, Macroinus has secretly arranged with a corrupt senator to allow his gladiator to prove his worth in front of the Caesars. The plan is for Lucius to enter a fight in the presence of the Caesars. If he wins, he will prove his worth and become a hero of the Colosseum. At that point, Macroinus will be in the imperial court, which is the goal. In the council of the Caesars, they expect Lucius to be a mere slave raised in the ignorance of Africa, surely no match for a trained fighter like Dorval, who faces him. The fight is intense. Within minutes, Lucius sits, tormented, unable to forget the scene of his wife's death. At that moment, he notices his friend Jugurtha, the island's king, among the captives. Jugurtha is injured, his bones broken, and life has beaten him down. Lucius approaches and begins tending to his wounds. From this point onward, Jugurtha is referred to without his royal title. Jugurtha is unbothered by life or death, ready to die with honor. He knows their fate is sealed and seems almost content to meet his end. Jugurtha recalls the day they found Lucius, a child lost in the desert, on the brink of life and death. They did not know where he came from or his story, but he adopted their customs and became one of them. Jugurtha's words take Lucius back to his childhood memories, to a time when he was hiding in a village. While playing, he noticed soldiers watching him and ran to his caretaker, who realized they had come to kill him. She urged him to escape as far as possible, unable to flee with him due to the lack of time. She placed him on a horse and stayed behind to delay the soldiers. Returning to the present, after a long journey, Commander Acacius arrives in Rome. The entire city welcomes them, celebrating the heroes who achieved great victories for the empire. However, it becomes evident that the governance remains dictatorial, with two emperors, brothers, ruling simultaneously, Geta and Caracalla. One is arrogant and bloodthirsty, while the other is equally violent but unstable. It seems all the sacrifices of Maximus and Emperor Marcus Aurelius were in vain, and the dream defeats his opponent. The moment shocks Gaius, who approaches Lucius and asks for his name, homeland, and profession before being captured. Lucius, however, remains defiant and doesn't answer the Caesar, which is seen as an insult and provocation. But Macroinus intervenes, lying to save the situation, saying, "He was raised in Africa and doesn't know our language." But Lucius speaks fluent Latin, but Macroinus saves him for the second time. Gaius holds a grudge against Lucius, but doesn't kill him immediately. eager to see him die in the arena. Later in Macroanus' quarters, we see him treating Lucius well, offering him a bath, new clothes, and 2 gold coins. Meanwhile, Lucilla and Akakios secretly meet with members of the Senate, planning for Akakios to enter Rome with his army on the last day of the Colosseum Games. He will kill the tyrants Gaius and Caligula, bringing peace to the world. Days later, Macroinus transports the gladiators to the arena. There, thousands of people cheer, and the VIPs include the Caesars and state officials. And to understand the match system, each round simulated a battle from the Roman army's history, a reenactment of the battle between the Romans and the barbarians. Lucius and his group represented the barbarians, while the Roman side was something else entirely. A massive African rhinoceros, armored and shielded, ridden by a professional fighter who had never lost a battle before. At that moment, Macrinus realized this was a plot by Geta to kill Lucius. He was furious but helpless. The rhinoceros attacked, pierced through an opponent, and killed him effortlessly. The fighter on top of it was an expert marksman, targeting them with precision. The situation was terrifying, and everyone retreated. At this point, the real heroes stepped forward, challenging Lucius and provoking the rhinoceros to attack them. At the last moment, they threw dust into the air, blinding the rhinoceros. It stumbled into a trap and got stuck, unable to escape. The fierce fighter dismounted and engaged in combat with Lucius. Meanwhile, Macrinus asked Geta if this was the same poem Lucius had recited to Lucilla. When Lucilla heard the poem, she became certain that Lucius was her son, especially since she already suspected it, because of his behavior and the way he fought, much like her father Maximus. They are supposed to have separated from each other, from him and as a child. We return to our hero, and the opponent is stronger and faster. He brings Lysis to the ground and to kill him, but he is waiting for the signal from Caesar. At that moment, the whole crowd is asking for mercy for Lucius. When he looks at Lucilla, he finds her asking for mercy as well. In the midst of all this, Macrinus was pretending and trying to understand, and was surprised by Lucilla's reaction and her obvious fear for Lucius. Finally, the king will decide to kill Lucius, but in order to gain the people's support, he spares his life. Lucius provokes Geta and tells him, "I don't want your mercy," so he orders his killing. But as usual, Lucius surprises everyone and kills the rival. Here we go to the means that brings back her old, abandoned house in which she lived with her son Lucius. And she turns in the forest and her memories and thinks of the great similarity between him and his father, and she is certain that this is her son. Here he remains. After her brother Commodus and Maximus died, leaving her son as the rightful heir to the throne. Fearing for his life, she made the difficult decision to send Lucius away, despite his pleas for her to come with him. She explained that she needed to stay behind to ensure his safety, promising to reunite with him as soon as possible. Returning to the present, Dr. Raffi treated Lucius's wounds and gave him opium to ease the pain. During this time, Macrinus, pleased with Lucius's victories, promised him a great opportunity to kill Cassius soon. The following day, Lucilla met with Macrinus, welcoming him warmly while subtly probing him. She noticed his suspicious behavior, especially since he had once supplied weapons to the army and earned significant wealth, only to later invest in purchasing slaves and training them as gladiators. Despite her doubts, she skillfully steered the conversation, learning about his gladiators and their origins. Macrinus revealed that his gladiators came from 2 sources: local markets, where slavery was hereditary, and prisoners of war purchased from the army. Later, Macrinus hosted a lavish feast, during which he learned from a senator that Lucilla once had a son who disappeared at the age of 10. Rumors suggested he had died in an accident, but some believed he was Maximus's son due to their alleged romantic relationship. Calculating the years, Macrinus realized Lucius's age matched that timeline. That evening, Lucilla secretly visited the gladiator cells with the help of her loyal senator, Garcos. In an emotional scene, she confronted Lucius, who glared at her with anger. She asked if he remembered her, but he remained silent. When she inquired about his family, he bitterly replied that soldiers, under her husband's orders, had killed his wife, Eurytia. Apologizing, Lucilla tried to explain that she had been a victim too, unable to escape with him without risking both their lives. However, Lucius refused to believe her and dismissed her. Returning home, Lucilla confirmed her suspicions that Lucius was indeed her son. Despite her sorrow, she felt a glimmer of joy knowing he was still alive. She and her allies began devising a plan to help Lucius escape before the final match, a deadly battle with no survivors. Meanwhile, Lucius trained relentlessly, enduring harsh treatment from his trainer, Vico, who forced him to row alone until exhaustion. During one of these grueling sessions, Dr. Raffi tended to Lucius's wounds. Lucius learned that Raffi was a free man who had once abandoned his ship to save the sick and wounded. Raffi shared that more soldiers died from their injuries than in actual combat. Intrigued, Lucius questioned why Raffi, a free man, chose to live among gladiators instead of returning home. Raffi revealed he had married a Roman woman and had 2 children with her. The two bonded, and Lucius confided his dream of restoring Rome to a republic governed by the Senate. Raffi listened without prying into the details, understanding the dangers of such aspirations. After a few hours, the new round of the battle begins. This time, they seem to have invested heavily, and they literally turned the arena into a sea and islands. We understand that they are simulating a naval battle from the Roman army's battles. After a while, Lucius and a group enter a ship. While the Roman soldiers are on another ship, they start exchanging arrows. As for those who fall into the water, don't ask about them. Despite the difficulty of the battle, Lucius uses his intelligence to end it by ramming the front of his ship into the middle of the enemy ship, causing it to break and start sinking. They attack the soldiers who are bewildered by what's happening. Amid this chaos, Lucius grabs a bow and aims at someone. Their eyes meet, and he realizes it's intentional. But someone bumps into Lucius, and the arrow ends up heading toward the Caesar. In the confusion, Geta doesn't know who fired the arrow, but he reacts angrily, shouting treachery. He quickly takes his brother to safety. After the battle, in which Lucius obviously triumphed, Vigo approaches them and asks who fired the arrow. To his surprise, they all claim responsibility because they owe Lucius, who has saved their lives multiple times. However, Vigo is convinced that Lucius is the one who fired the arrow. On the other side, Lucilla's maid turns out to be a spy for Senator Chercheron, informing him of the coup plan and Lucius's escape. Later, Macrinus visits Chercheron's house, which now belongs to him because Chercheron is indebted to him after borrowing 10,000 gold coins and failing to repay them. Chercheron pleads with Macrinus for patience, but Macrinus exploits the situation, demanding his loyalty. Left with no choice, Chercheron swears allegiance to Macrinus and even informs him of Lucilla and Acacius's coup plan. Macrinus wastes no time and devises a plan to eliminate them. In the next scene, Lucilla, Acacius, and the supporting senators are arrested. The Caesars are furious and decide to strip Lucilla of her privileges and execute her along with Acacius and the senators. Macrinus, now closer to the Caesars, is considered a friend. He advises them not to kill Acacius because he is a Roman hero loved by the people. Instead, he suggests letting the gods decide his fate by making him fight in the next match. If he dies, it will seem like fate, not treachery. We shift to Dr. Rivy, who treats Lucius's wound. During their conversation, Lucius notices a gladiator's name erased from a mural. Rivy explains that it's the name of the hero Maximus, erased because the authorities dislike anyone who mentions his name. Lucius reveals he saw Maximus once and admired his greatness and kind heart. Rivy then takes him to a long-closed underground area, explaining that it's where rebellious gladiators are buried, including Maximus himself. Lucius notices a shield on the wall and recalls meeting Maximus as a child. He realizes it's Maximus's shield and decides to use it in the upcoming fight. The next day, Acacius is dragged into the arena to face 4 elite soldiers. Lucilla, chained, is forced to watch. For the legendary commander, the fight is simple. Left, right, up, down. He easily defeats them. However, the Caesars are determined to kill him and announce another fight, this time against Lucius. Lucius enters, unable to believe Macrinus kept his promise and granted him a fight to seek revenge. The fight begins, and Lucius is ferocious, unlike Acacius, who only defends himself, not wanting to harm Lucius because he knows he is the son of his beloved Lucilla and the great Maximus. Acacius even throws down his weapon and kneels before Lucius, explaining that when he attacked their city, he was following the Caesar's orders. He confesses his love for Lucilla, his loyalty to Maximus, and his allegiance to Lucius. Lucius, realizing Acacius was merely following orders, decides to spare him, not wanting to break his mother's heart, as he once felt the pain of losing his beloved Ericia. The scene confuses Caesar Geta, who orders his soldiers to shoot arrows, killing Acacius. The people are shocked, and Lucilla is devastated by the loss. Lucius, enraged, delivering a fiery speech that ignites their anger and protests in the stands. Later that evening, Macrinus confronts Lucius, furious. "You refused to kill him." Lucius responds, "You bought a gladiator, not a slave." Macrinus leaves without replying. The unrest in the country escalates, with protests and anger spreading from the arena to the palace gates. Inside the palace, Caracalla is visibly shaken, hearing the people demand their heads. He tells his brother, "I told you not to kill Acacius. Look where it's led us." Geta, already anxious, lashes out at his brother, ordering him to stay in his room until the situation calms down. Macrinus notices Caracalla's unstable mental state and seeks permission from Geta to calm him down. However, instead of soothing him, Macrinus manipulates Caracalla's limited intelligence, planting seeds of distrust against his brother. He hints that Geta plans to betray him, declaring before the people and Senate that Geta is responsible for the chaos. "And they'll kill you, and Geta will seize the throne alone." Moments later, Caracalla storms into his brother's room with a knife, wounding his hand and attempting to stab his chest. Geta tries to fend him off, pleading, and he asks Macrinus to save him. He kills him instead. We return to Lucius in his cell, as if waiting for a visit. Indeed, he receives a basket, but this time he knows that she has not abandoned him, and that she helped him escape in the first place for his life. He cherishes her in Acacius and says, "I can't lose you." He learns that the Caesar wants to kill her, but Lucilla tells him that after seeing him, death no longer matters to her. She gives him a ring and tells him that her father gave it to Maximus' father as proof of rightful inheritance. Maximus passed it on before his death because he loved her, and she gave it to Acacius because he was a hero of Rome. Hours later, Caesar Clacla meets with the Senate and informs them that his brother was a traitor and that he killed him to restore the people's trust. Now, as the sole emperor, he announces his choice for the first consul. He declares the monkey as the first consul and grants him authority over the empire's military and civil affairs. He asks them to honor the monkey, and they reluctantly chant, "Dandos." Dandos sits on the throne. The surprising part is that the second consul is Macrinus, who was originally a slave with dark skin. Macrinus is honored, and the council cannot object, so they praise him. They call him Sharshun because he owes Macrinus a favor. Clacla announces a grand victory parade and mass executions of traitors. At this moment, Macrinus feels closer than ever to his dream of ruling Rome. He commands everyone to sit and declares that he has reached this position through luck and skill. He pulls out Emperor Gada's head from a bag and displays it before them, walking around the center, looking into their eyes, demanding their allegiance for imperial leadership. Of course, Sharshun is the first to raise his hand, followed by the others in fear. In the next scene, Macrinus visits Lucilla and tells her that Rome must be silenced to start anew. He says, "You are as unrealistic as your father." His dream of Rome was an illusion, and that's why he was betrayed, and upon leaving tells her that her death will clear the path to the throne. Tomorrow there will be a match, and he will win it all. During this time, Lucius holds the ring his mother gave him and contemplates. He calls for Rifa and asks if he can deliver a message before dawn to the commander of the second army camp outside the city. He gives him Maximus's ring, saying the commander will recognize it and asking him to request the commander's intervention in Rome. Rifa asks who sent him, and Lucius reveals that he is the Prince of Rome and heir to the throne. Rifa agrees and before leaving, hands Lucius the keys to his cell. Rifa takes the message and immediately heads to the camp. There he delivers the ring to the commander, who recognizes it instantly. When asked where he got the ring, Rifa replies that he was sent by Lucius, Prince of Rome. The next scene shows Darius wasting no time and moving with Rifa at the head of the second army to respond to Lucius's call. That day marks the final match. Clacla leans toward Macrinus, asking, "Is it kind for the run to the Indian on the mail to upon just something as the Eros fit and or a piano kit semen, your order who shan in a minute head to the merit to some ocean as I put it. Occasionally, on Donatana and next H. Pirana, Indian, name I out net did. So we know but he cling at that track, ready, way, power in the German from so, Sineha, be about that. See, and the other and they found 800 Metsunus Poisa, since Kelonay on an Unaila and Nasino, now a cash doors to 30s. I do a bed hard. Me at the kiss a dog, but I ain't at the tate, so be nay no, it can do it. That other day, my race on Swiss payment, mean George, I'm what need Ticola and the no really the 30 mangateers be hey, you're drawing ye and you beyond it. Side it is. Hey, Tamos, followers, how? Ecuador, and they are been on me. The dots my foot need and hot that's not a minute, but no, we are that. Forget the name, errors, at Oman Shannon, as was Rahon, already out a kin man, nearly see the net for a door inco. Man, you're so low for nuts. Earth and what? is a fast with America, some of the Nevada, it too. Can non paying getting Hanan don't ben and Inga Sidamin and Nerner will lead for ironing in June. Sure, brand. No, Missy Sher, the nature and boom, and the unmet in San Verde, the Punan that said if it is a son on and bull AKBI, Betty at the boy got an unnekish at mine can answer was had you ling shin the other ponasaturas and errors have been not at a fit mono fat motor and feel that that had the high yet to ask if he on needed Emma who not a fife. How on thrown fire out of toy and on any full other than don't who now saying to you the pain it buttons when many move whatsoever okay on terror or take it into then towdy harsher ratted and the free Ruben balcon the first part in the end in the ID the fit or the home with he for go machine is it about again sure how you just are you bit to Nerioni, Gagoni the Seger of Nick Saini Manohana Pero Nima owned the videos. Sisa there and it didn't affiliate with your food that I admit